Okay, perfect. So welcome everyone to another one of our WST 20-minute talk series. Today we have our second synergy talk, which is happening between the Time Domain Working Group and the Galactic Working Group. So today we have one of the two co-chairs of the Star and Planet Interaction Sub-Working Group, which is co-chaired by Mario Tsantaki and Katia Biazzo, who are both on this call. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation again. So a brief presentation of Mario, who many of you know, of course. She's a postdoc currently at the Arcetri in Enaf, Italy, and her main interest and expertise are lying within a star-planet interaction. She's also very much involved with the preparations of the Ariel mission, and she's also done a lot of work for the proposals of the star-planet interaction in the Galactic Working Group. So we are very excited to hear about your work for WST and also generally what you're interested in. The floor is yours, Maria. Please go ahead. Thank you so much again. It's great seeing you always.
Thanks for the introduction. I will share the screen and I think it's time. Okay, good.
Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So today I will present the ideas we had with Katia Biazzo on this working group with other members of the sub-working group about the exoplanets and their environments and how WST can help us understand this. So the outline of this talk will be based on the axiom, know the star, know the planet, that is very well known from the first discoveries of the exoplanets, why precise and accurate characterization of the exoplanet systems requires a precise and accurate characterization of the star, and why homogeneous approaches are the way to go when we want to do this type of studies. Then I will talk about some examples on the correlations between the stellar parameters and abundances with the planetary frequency and planetary properties, and how these correlations can help us constrain the models of planet formation evolution. And finally, I will talk about a bit about some new studies about the links between the composition of stars and their planets, and how this can help us characterize the interior of the planets, but also give insights in the planet formation history and their migration. So the first thing I want to talk about is some recent works on how to correlate the stellar metallicity and the rocky planet composition. So these are very recent works. We assume that the planets are from the same with the same material of the stars, but what is the exact form of this correlation? Still, it's unknown. This is an example of some recent works, of 3 different works actually, that they show the iron content of the star and the planet. For a rocky planet, again, I'm talking only about small planets, but the authors find very different type of correlations. Some find weak correlation, not one-to-one, but some significant type of correlation, and some other works find no correlation. And this is an ongoing topic. And these type of studies are very important because the amount of elements can help us constrain what are this type of planets made of. For example, in their interior composition, the water content, the mantle mineralogy, and the core mass fraction. So this is an example of some of the diversity of the interior of the small planets, depending on the aluminum content, for example, of the magnesium to silicon ratio, which is a proxy for the mantle mineralogy, or from the iron to magnesium ratio, which is a proxy for the core size. So all these abundances of the planets, we assume that they are equal to the one of the star. But we can have cases that they are not, as these three examples down here. So we should understand how these properties correlate. Another important thing is to have in mind is that the authors were addressing from the first works that I mentioned before is that the limiting factor in this type of studies is the homogeneity and the uncertainties in the stellar parameters, in particular also in the abundances, properties like the mass and radius, but also in the planetary ones that we sometimes in the literature kind of don't pay much attention. For example, in the work of Osborne et al. Presented here, the authors wanted to homogenize the radial velocities in order to homogenize the planetary masses. And they took all the available RV data, I think, from the HARPS, and they wanted to do a homogeneous study based on their models. And they find this, it's difficult to see the plot, but I would just want to show that there are differences when we do homogeneous studies rather than using the individual values from the literature. And this type of plots will have an impact on the planetary properties. On the other hand, Chen et al. Showed in their work the differences and the impact that can have the uncertainties in the stellar abundances. For example, these are the abundances of the three different works I showed before, in the plot I showed before. And the authors used for the same star even, derive their abundances in different ways. So we expect this type of errors to affect how we derive this type of correlations. So it's important to have this in mind when we want to derive to robust conclusions. Apart from the composition of small planets, the stellar metallicity can impact also our understanding on how giant planets form. For example, the abundances of CNO are very important to tell us where the giant planet in the protoplanetary disk was formed. So the comparison of these ratios between the host star and the giant planet can constrain the formation location of the disk in the disk where this planet was formed, and also if these elements are in gaseous form or in solid form. So these two plots can show these cases that I explained, taken from Turini, where this type of, we have this type of ratios, we can have heavy element dominated by the accretion of solids, while in the other case, in the big case, as shown in this plot here, we can have accretion mostly from the disk gas. So this type of ratios can constrain the migration history of giant planets. And they are always in dependence of stellar ones. Other examples I want to talk about is the correlations between the planetary properties, in particular of stellar mass, with the planetary ones. So these two plots are taken from our work from the preparation of the Ariel space mission, where we derived the stellar masses in a homogeneous way, and we found a correlation between the stellar mass and the planetary radius, but underlying on top of that, a metallicity dependence. So we find that for a given stellar mass, for example, around 1, we have more puffed planets around iron metal poor environments. So this means that giant planets formed in the lower iron metallicity environment are richer in lighter elements and that appear with higher ID. While for the plot with planetary mass, this correlation does not appear strong enough. And if there is a correlation, it's not a linear one. But also this can indicate that when we have higher mass stars, that they have higher mass planets, this type of planets can be ejected. So the correlation is not strong enough. So apart from the stellar properties, iron metallicity plays a key role when we want to understand planet frequency. So from the first discoveries of exoplanets, it was very clear that the giant planet frequency correlates very well with the stellar iron metallicity, as on in this plot here, where the planet host stars are plotted in blue and the single stars in red. And this, again, from the beginning, was a clear argument in favor of the core accretion model that is shown in this black line here. But on the other hand, the small sized planets behave differently with iron metallicity. They have a weaker dependence rather than the larger planets, as shown in this plot by Buhave, where the hosts of the small planets have a wider range. They can be found also in iron poor stars. And apart from that, what we still don't know is the low limit in iron metallicity where we can form small planets. There are a lot of studies in this field, and it's still not decided from observational point of view. And then these observations can constrain the model. So it's really important to understand how metal poor can go in terms of small planets. So there are a few works who use Kepler data that they want to extrapolate the low metallicity limit, but there are a lot of uncertainties there. So this is an interesting topic to look for. Okay, so we saw how metallicity is important in shaping planet frequency, but also what type of planets we are going to have. And we know that our galaxy is divided in different galactic populations with different chemistry. So it is natural to assume that the galactic chemical evolution can profoundly affect the planet demographics for our galaxy. So for example, I saw here the chemical separation of the galactic disk into thin and thick, that they have different alpha over iron chemistry. And then there are some recent works that they take this information, and on top of that, they want to simulate what type of planets are different. We expect in different galactic components. So, for example, Better et al. Use a population synthesis model and a Milky Way analog, and they found that planets in the bulge and thin disk are similar, the same for thick disk and hollow planets, but they have different ages. And also they find that giant planets are more common around thin disk and bulge stars, while Earths are more common in the thick and the hollow stars, are shown in this occurrence race diagram. This is also a topic that is now becoming very popular with very interesting results, trying to combine the galactic chemical evolution with the plant populations in these models. From the observational point of view, have also some studies to work on this. For example, in the Ariel mission, we have also characterized we are preparing for the target list of Ariel, and we have checked where our stars belong, and most of the stars belong in the think disk, but also we checked migration. So even though our stars are mostly located in the solar neighborhood, we have a diversity of stars coming from the inner and outer part of the disk. There are also some examples from the GAPS collaboration, where the authors also perform the chemokinematic analysis to find their separation, the disk. And also the oldest one, I would say, is from the HARPS GDO Planet Search program, where they are more of the 1,000 stars, host and unhost. And they also try to separate their stars between the disks and try to find if there are any differences observationally. Of course, the statistics are very small, and stars in the thick disk are more difficult to find due to the problems with the metal poor stars. But there are hints that the kinematically hot and alpha-enriched stars have more low mass planets rather than the cold and less alpha-enhanced stars that have more massive planets. I show again an example of our work from Ariel. We wanted to check further that. So we used our sample of planet host stars, and we divided them into the two galactic components and checked their planetary masses. So in this bottom plot, I show the cumulative distribution function as of planetary mass, and we find that the thick disk hosts have lower mass planets. So we can, assuming that, assuming also the galactic chemical evolution, we can say that the think disk stars, due to the relationship between age and metallicity, are metal rich, and that we saw before, and also should be youngest. So as stars get more chemically enriched over time, the formation of more massive planets is enhanced as well. And this is also shown in the other works that I mentioned before. So another interesting topic that we can study is where the planets come from. So in this work of Teixeira et al., the authors calculate their birth radii of hosts and non-hosts, characterized in a homogeneous way. So they find that stars hosting high-mass planets have smaller Earth birth radii than stars hosting low-mass planets. Moreover, the authors calculate their ages and their relative frequency because they have stars that they have no planets, so they can derive frequencies. So as shown in this plot, the formation efficiency of high-mass planets decreases steeply with age, while the formation efficiency of low-mass planets is not that dependent. So high-mass planets are more sensitive to the environment. So also, the formation efficiency of planets decreases with galactocentric distance and is stronger for high-mass planets than for low-mass planets, as shown in this plot. Finally, I want to talk the effect of galactic chemical evolution and why this is important when we want to compare planet frequencies or characteristics between stars with and without planets. So I show these two plots of the carbon over iron with our metallicity from two different samples, from the HARPS GO that is around 1,000 stars, and the Ariel sample that's around 200 stars, the less than 200 stars in this release. So if you want to say that carbon is an important element that favors planet formation, we have to be careful how to make comparisons, because carbon changes with metallicity. So the comparisons have to be with similar populations. For example, in this work for the iron-rich environment in the thin disk, the authors find no difference between carbon between planet hosts and non-hosts. While when we go to more iron-poor environments, the thick disk, this can be more important. So carbon can be more important in the formation, in particular for small planets. So in the iron-poor environment, other elements than iron can play an important role in the formation of small-sized planets. The same hints were observed for the Ariel, even though the sample was much smaller and it was not statistically significant. So it was inconclusive in the work of the Silva et al. So by now, I hope I have convinced you that the star plays an important role in shaping the planetary systems. And I want to say a few words on the importance of homogeneity in stellar samples. There are two main techniques where we can derive stellar parameters based on the equivalent width method or the spectral synthesis. Here I show the references of the work with Ariel, but the literature is endless on this. There is a lot of expertise, and these techniques are now industrialized, so they are very automatic. But what I want to mention is that, for example, what we do for Ariel is that we use priors from gaiastrometry, photometry to constrain surface gravity. So we want to reduce our errors as much as possible because we know gravity is one of the most difficult parameters to derive with spectroscopy. And we see that after we iteratively converge from purely spectroscopic to constraints, and then another run to have the most constrained gravity possible, we can have a smaller scatter in stellar parameters. But then when we obtain the stellar parameters, temperature, gravity, metallicity, we then derive the stellar mass and radii, and this therefore can be used also for the planetary properties, is important. So we can have also a reduced scatter in stellar masses. Again, all derived in homogeneous way. And now the other point I want to make is that apart from homogeneity to reduce scatter, we want observations in high resolution to reduce the uncertainties. Also because we are dealing with different types of stars. Planet hosts are diverse. We can have from N-dwarfs to A-type stars, covering the whole main sequence, or even giant stars. So high resolution is key to be able to characterize well the star. And also in terms of homogeneity, we have to make a lot of tests to reassure ourselves that our parameters are homogeneous enough. For example, since in high resolution we cannot use one single spectral graph, we need a lot of observational time for these studies. We have to compare if using different instruments can, in fact, introduce extra trends. So the point I want to make is that we have to know where our parameters come from. And there are, fortunately, many works in the literature that work on homogeneity. And here I present some examples. For example, the SweetCat catalog that has now around 1,000 stars, homogeneous derived in high resolution. And then there are the California Kepler sample, again in high resolution. And we are working also on the Ariel. It's a smaller one. Now it has around 300 stars. But by the end of, actually before the launch of Ariel, we hope to have 1,000 stars. And then there are some other works that they are not related to planets, but they do some sort of homogenization. For example, the Hypatia catalog that they want to homogenize the chemical abundances. And the Pastel catalog that's well known using high resolution results. Okay, so I want to say a few words now for the next exoplanet missions that they will work on planet demographics. So we know that TESS now is ongoing, targeting bright stars, but we expect many more to come with Gaia, for example, mostly giant planets and cold giant planets in DR4, but many more in the DR5. We have Plato. Again, Plato will target bright stars, but there's also a program targeting M dwarfs. And finally, Roman, that Roman will target a variety of galactic population. For example, they will look into the bulge, which is an environment that is not deeply understood in terms of planet formation. And I found this image very interesting of how the current planet surveys locate in the solar neighborhood and how our man will go much deeper. Just understand that most of our understanding comes from the solar neighborhood of planets. Okay, and this is a plot I took from the WST white paper, that there is the extrapolation of the exoplanets we expect by 2040s or 2050s from the extrapolated from the current catalogs, but in fact, with these missions, the numbers will be much larger. So this is an underestimation, I believe. Okay, so I want to say a few words about our working group for the WST. So to do this type of studies, to study planet host stars, because WST will not do planet detection, but will be a great instrument for the planet host characterization, in particular because it will work in high resolution. I have to mention that I did not mention the science case of white dwarfs that is included in our working group. That's also very interesting, but I'm not an expert on that. It will be also included, and there are also some science papers out in the archive about that. So we have and very preliminary expected list of planet host stars to be observed with WST, with the ones we expect from the missions that I mentioned. But this is an underestimation, because the lists are not out for this for the missions, especially for the men that we expect to increase by 100,000 the host in the future. So what we want to do is we want to characterize precisely the hosts, in particular for elements important for planet formation. And this type of work will be in complete synergy with the missions Plato, Gaia, Roman. And I have to say that for Roman in particular, I don't think there is another instrument at the moment that can be complementary to WST, because Roman will go very faint. And then we will have a complete plane evolution from young stars to white dwarfs. So we can study a variety of environments. And of course, the most capability of WST is to be explored for these thousands of hosts that we expect. So I'll leave you with my conclusions that homogeneity is super important for this type of works. The galactic environment is important to shape planetary system, and something that is explored at the moment. And in the future, I believe we're going to have the studying planets in terms of galaxies. This is what I think in the future will be. And WST, I believe that will play an important role in the future and join us. These are the emails that we can ask us to put in the mailing list of the groups. And I have to do some advertisement that at the next year session, we'll have a dedicated one to this type of studies in Lausanne. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Maria. A great talk. Okay, so now we're taking questions. If anyone has any comments, questions. Okay, so I have one, which is like out of sheer ignorance. So if you have a high resolution MOS arm, let's say for WST, would that be any helpful for your research?
Sorry, can you repeat?
If you have a near infrared arm
Okay.
in WST, would that be helpful for your research? Because I mean, near infrared, I mean, you will have a lot of tellurics, right? So it's going to be, I mean, yeah, would there be like any
Yes.
molecular lines that would be useful for you because you're doing chemical balances?
For the hosts, it will be useful to characterize the M dwarfs, because then there will be the peak of their flux. So yeah, so I want to make clear that again, WST will, at least what we propose now, is the precise characterization of the planet host stars. So we need from ranges that have the elements that they are important for planet formation. As I mentioned, CNO we can find also in the optical. Actually, in the infrared, but it may be too far. Can be phosphorus.
Yes.
Oxygen will be included again in the optical part, but maybe it could be important for M dwarfs. I don't know if Katya you want to add something about this.
Yes, I can only add that there are several diagnostics in the near infrared, for instance, for habitability reasons, for instance, the phosphorus, which is around 1 micron, but also other lines like sulfurs, and also in the bluer part of the red region, we have also potassium, for instance, which are all of these elements are useful for searching, let's say, for habitability, and also for the let's say formation of planets, because some of these elements are also studies for atmospheric characterization of the planets. So the comparison between, for instance, for sulfurs between planets and stars is important for the evolution studies.
Right. The WST proposals has also this section that is dedicated to upgrades and plans. So
yes,
if you wanted
we
to
had a
add
section. We had a
Right.
small section in the science cases for making these few
argument.
words. Yes,
Could
about
be beneficial for habitability.
Yes,
especially for Endors.
and also dwarf, of course, because we have the comparison in activity for activity reason, because the variation in you can recognize if the variation is due to activity or not, no?
Right.
So
True. No, awesome. Okay, questions from the audience? Okay, if not, then I think we can close the. Did I hear anything? Okay, no. Okay, we can close the session here. Thank you again, Mario. And we are very much looking forward to having Katya next time, which is somewhere in March, I believe. And yes, so yeah, please stay tuned for our synergy talks and we'll see you in the future. Take care, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
So, bye-bye. Thank you.